We were talking about the devaluing of human life and the use of fear to manipulate Americans into assigning moral authority to the sovereign, to the state, to the government. Undermining family. This devaluing of human life is one building block of how what was once the single most influential source of authority, the family, has been and is even now being undermined. The breakdown of civil society would not be complete without relieving family of its moral authority role. We see evidence of such undermining of family in the demographic trends. Whereas in previous generations, divorce was perhaps the primary undermining force of family as a moral authority, today, fewer people are getting married or are marrying later. Undermining the traditional family unit first by limiting the number of years available to give birth to children and construct a cohesive nuclear family through which to pass on and live out cultural values, and second, by robbing their children of time spent in the care and under the values of their own parents, grandparents of any potential children they may have. Because by the time grandchildren are introduced, most grandparents have fewer energetic hours for them, or they live somewhere far away across the country. Couples who want children are thus having fewer. But more alarming is that fewer couples are even having children or even desire to have children than in generations past. And framing the argument as punishing a girl or young woman with a baby hasn't helped either. I mean, since when is the miracle of being able to grow an entire human being within yourself and then have a unique human being with infinite potential emerge from you, your own body? Since when has that been seen as a punishment? Oh, is your body never going to be the same? Is your life forever changed? Yes and yes. But this is one of those places where I just think we need to change the narrative. Talk about the wonder, the potential, the rewards of looking outside of oneself, of introducing new life to the world, to being able to challenge our belief systems, our value systems, to grow in our decision-making process. We need to talk about our power to shape not only the life that is completely dependent upon us, but to speak into the entire generation that will come after us. To understand the responsibility and spirituality and, yes, authority, including moral authority. Does having a baby change everything? Yes. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. And I know there are women, maybe even when they were girls, who made what was once a difficult decision to, quote, terminate a pregnancy. And yes, there is a conversation we could have here about that too. But that narrative that having a baby is punishment has bled over into the reproduction narrative as a whole. People are proud to be dinks, double income, no kids. People are annoyed, dinks are annoyed that their childless lives get less love and interest from their family members, even though they're traveling and having awesome experiences. They don't understand why the other family members don't care enough in their eyes about all this wonderful stuff they're doing. They are living an awesome life, and they're kind of like, look at me. I couldn't do this if we had children. I couldn't have this experience. I couldn't travel to this place, or I couldn't have bought this awesome car if we couldn't have afforded this car if we had had children. We bought into an awesome neighborhood. We bought a house that we couldn't have afforded if we had had children. So they want to know why their families aren't invested in this wonderful news that they have. Because here's the thing, that trip you took, if it had been done for your children, your family would probably be all over that. Like, what did they learn? How did they express their wonder? In that house that you bought, why? Did you need another bedroom for a child? How's that child? How does the child like their bedroom? No. That swimming pool. Did you want that swimming pool so you'd be the hub of summer activity for neighborhood children, or maybe you wanted to teach your children to swim? No, that's not why you needed that new house, that new swimming pool. Did you need that extra room for your gym equipment, for your office? What is it about? To impress the neighbors? Is it to impress us? Why was it so important to buy that car? Again, to impress? To impress whom exactly? Was it maybe to virtue signal or to signal your technological acumen? Or was that truck? Why did you buy that big old truck? Is it to pull a camper so you could expose your children, the next generation, to the wonder of the outdoors and have them fall in love with nature? No, it's just because you wanted to go camping, you wanted to travel. Like, what is that about? The idea that children are a punishment has shaped the next generation's viewpoints on pretty much everything. I have 3 kids, and one is married, and they did announce that they were not planning on having children. They own a house, they have 2 dogs, and they're building another house. But they're not leaving a legacy. They will not be passing down values or knowledge or DNA, and they are depriving both sets of parents from the blessing of grandchildren, for the opportunity to speak into the next generation's lives. Okay, I digress. With fewer children, those children who are born are often the center of the household. So not only has the entertainment industry portrayed family units where the demands and desires of young children win out over the authority and values of the parents and grandparents, but parents, thanks to media, academia, and the slow incremental implementation of a strategy introducing and celebrating alternate values and understandings regarding family, have unwittingly devalued their own role. Parents have unwittingly devalued their own role. And many, even those who are parenting experts, who have attempted to do everything to give their children all the advantages, the correct advantages, like the best school, the best extracurriculars, whether it be in music, sports, a foreign language, all 3 and more, even they are undermining their personal influence in their own children's lives and are blissfully unaware. I actually see this within my neighbor's family, whose daughter is a PhD and a university professor of psychology that deals with attachment issues in her expertise and research. But she is still handing over her own authority through the choices she makes, which she thinks are the best thing for her own daughter. And she also strictly regulates the contact my neighbors can have with their own granddaughter. So not only have parents unwittingly devalued their own role, but those that do choose to have children also often find themselves forcibly removed from a place of authority in their own children's lives, with schools taking away parents' rights to decide when and how to approach sexual matters, to even taking away the parents' right to be informed on health and relationship issues at school adequately enough so as to be able to parent compassionately at home. Parents increasingly find themselves outside the value-creating moral authority equation. Incremental progress. And the new moral authority has free rein to impose alternative values on impressionable minds. Not only have our institutions and experts been able to manipulate our emotions and passions, but those that want to switch out our values for theirs have framed the process as being inherently good. Normalization of the unnatural in the psyche of Americans, and thus the elimination of sources of authority, was intentional. And the easiest demonstration of the incremental and intentional shift is through examining a plan that worked. Marshall Kirk, a researcher in neuropsychiatry, and Hunter Masden, a public relations consultant, laid out their intentional plan to shift perception in the November 1987 edition of Guide, that's a magazine. It was brilliant and it worked. Starting with desensitization through constant talk, the goal was intentional division on the topic discussed. From portraying the church as outdated and out of step with modern psychology to vilifying any opponents to the agenda, they used the entertainment industry along with loads of money to finance the marketing campaign and backroom deals with media companies to completely reverse the attitudes within the entirety of American society regarding a single issue, that of homosexuality. Please keep listening. This is another issue where I hold a vastly different viewpoint from that of mainstream, quote, Christian narrative and from that of the, quote unquote, progressives. This is not to debate the, quote, evils of homosexuality. No, it is just a really, really good example. The point in bringing this up is that their wildly successful implementation of an incremental strategy to achieve progress toward a desired goal worked to replace old values with new ones. Okay, so the success is demonstrated, is evidenced through a reversal of positions within American society as determined by polling data. And all that is footnoted in the hard copy book. But for example, in 1987, Gallup polls indicated 33% thought same-sex relations between consenting adults should be legal when it was not legal, and 55% thought same-sex relations should be outlawed. But then in 2015, 68% thought same-sex relations should be legal, and only 28% were opposed. And then the similar views on same-sex marriage. Those weren't even polled until 1996, but in 1996, 27% of Americans approved of same-sex marriage, 68% were opposed. By 2015, 58% approve and 40% disapprove. And I would guarantee that now, or like 10 years after that, that those numbers are even more shifted in that direction. Homosexuality was systematically desensitized, normalized, and then celebrated. Homosexuality, remember, was outside the norms, and it was outside the value system of the time. Politicians, for example, who wanted to gain office had to hide this behavior. Many wore what we used to call jackets. Gay men would marry women, have children, and get elected while hiding their true sexual desires. And all you had to do to take out a politician was prove he was gay. Now, that's completely turned on its head, right? We have gay men celebrating their homosexuality and getting elected because they are gay. It was not just fictional shows and fictional friends and fictional families, but the campaign laid the foundation for acceptability to come out, as these beliefs and behaviors were no longer necessary to hide away in the closet. First Hollywood actors, then politicians, and then teachers. Once the strategy proved successful for homosexuality, they started all over again through the LGBTQ movement when they added the T and the Q to the public marketing campaign. So during a time where traditional families are no longer revered and instead pride is found by taking part in the process of progress, the family is further undermined and its moral authority, along with that of traditional faith practices and institutions, is eradicated. Once that is complete, they no longer need to take on or persuade adults to join the progress. They simply tap into the next generation by taking the marketing campaign to the children who have already been conditioned to look to public institutions and the media for values assessment and directives on proper behavior. Children are then encouraged not only in their imagination, but to embrace their true self by these people in positions of authority. When they go home from school, for example, and tell their parents that their true self is a demisexual fawn self gender and add that their pronouns are fawn self, the parents balk at the assertion and express bafflement, confirming in the minds of the children what their teachers have insinuated, that their parents and their parents' entire generation are simply old fogies who cannot possibly understand, let alone empathize with their children's struggles and whose time has come and gone. The child then looks at their parents' traditions and values and culture and decides to throw all of it into the dustbin of history and come up with something new. Values and culture that bear no resemblance to those of their parents. Something that speaks to the progress they long to help create.